guys, welcome back for episode number 132. I only have 2 games to talk about today, but I might even skip one of them just because today I actually do have to record before I go take care of the cats because I have another social engagement later in the evening, so I might feel a little bit rushed today, so we'll see given the time right now. So let's just get started. Let's talk about Perch. Perch is a 2024 game for 2 to 5 players designed by Douglas Hetrick, and the art is done by Ari Oliver, and it's published by Inside Up Games. This is a friend's copy that I am borrowing to shoot this segment. So I played with my friend's copy and we played a 5-player game of this. Now this is an area control game with a lot of take that. Like, it is super chaotic because of the amount of take that there is in this game. So each person is going to have like a bunch of birds which are going to stay in this like little thing over here. Of course they just got mixed up, but here are the birds, and the birds do stack up on top of each other. So they each have like a little thing, like a little peg on top, so that you can stack up the birds on top of each other. So that way the board doesn't get super cluttered. However, this fountain and plaza board does get really cluttered. Like this, I think needed to be a lot larger. So birds which are scared off of the board go to the fountain, or if the fountain is filled up, then to the plaza. But we will talk about all of that when we get to it. So you are going to arrange the tiles in a certain formation, so you can look at the picture, and the tiles, you know, are of all different kinds, and we didn't even use all of the tiles because this game comes with more tiles than you will use. So some of them are just tiles which may have a nest on them, which will give you a +1 when it comes to counting up your number of birds to see if you control that area. And nests look like this, and my friend, he backed the deluxe edition of this game, so I cannot tell you what the non-deluxe edition looks like. So that would be a nest. So some tiles have nests on them, some have nothing on them. Some tiles will have an animal on them which you can gain control of. Like, for example, the country house. If you end up with control of this tile at the end of the round, in the next round you would have control of this cat. And like, there are some tiles which may give you a scarecrow, a fox, a hawk, and so on. So let's talk about how this game plays. So at the start of each round, you have, I believe, what is called the migration phase, but let me just take a look at the player aid, because the player aid goes over what all the different phases are called. Yes, so the migration phase. So what you're going to do is you are going to take, in turn order, 2 birds from the flock, and again, all the birds stay in this thing. So you will grab 2 birds of each color of the players and place them into a bag. And then in turn order, each person is going to draw 2 birds from this bag. So you might end up getting birds of another player's color. And in addition, you will take 2 birds of your own color from the flock. So now you have a total of 4 birds to play with in that round. So everyone is going to do that. So again, you will likely end up with birds of other players' colors, because I think it's quite unlikely that you will end up drawing your own 2 birds from this bag and then adding you'll add 2 birds from the flock of your own color again. So I mean, you know, there is a chance you could draw your own 2 birds from this bag, but again, I think the chances are pretty slim. So then in turn order, you're going to take turns placing birds onto the tiles. So again, you're trying to gain control of some tiles. Like, so for example, this tile says that the person who has control of it will gain 1 point at the end of the round. The person with the second most will gain 1 point. The person with the least amount of birds on this tile at the end of the round will actually gain 2 points. Some of them will give you nothing. So for example, because no points, because they give you control of a special kind of character. So for example, this is the scarecrow tile. So if you control this tile at the end of the round, you won't get any points, but now you'll be able to place the scarecrow at an intersection to use that scarecrow during the next round. And the second and the third player will have 2 points each. Ties are really brutal in this game. If you have ties, then you don't get anything. You don't even like go and drop down to the next lower number to score points. So ties are very brutal, and it can be to your advantage because you might want to place birds, and so to make other players tie on certain tiles so that they don't get those points or control of certain characters, certain animals throughout this board. So in turn order, you're going to take turns placing one of the birds which you had taken onto a tile. Optionally, you can do one bonus action. So you can activate a creature which you had previously gained control of. So for example, if I had previously in the previous round gained control of the cat, what the cat does is he moves to the tile that is adjacent to him with the most number of birds. He will send one of those birds to the fountain, or if the fountain is filled up, to the plaza, and he will send another one of those birds to an adjacent spot. The adjacent spot could be off of a tile into nothing, in which case it would also go to the fountain or a plaza, or it could be onto an adjacent tile. So that's what the cat's ability is. So the cat basically does what he wants. You have to move him to the tile with the most number of birds if you want to activate his ability. So again, you can use one bonus action per turn. So you could end up activating this cat on every single turn if you wanted to, which I actually did in the second round of the game. Another bonus action you can do is to build a birdhouse. So this only happens in rounds 4 and 5. Each person will have one birdhouse that they can build. And what you're going to do is add it onto a stack of birds. And that means that stack of birds is protected. So now no one can send any birds from here to the fountain or the plaza. You cannot remove any birds. So a birdhouse protects the birds. So each person gets one birdhouse to use, which they will gain access of in round 4, and you can use it in round 4 or 5. In round 5, you end up getting one of these lightning bolt tokens. So the other bonus action you can do, and you can only do this in the last round of the game, is to basically kill any bird anywhere. So that is what you can do with that. You don't have to use it, but you can use it if you want to. So again, you get one bonus action per turn. So after everyone has taken all 4 of their turns, placing all of their birds, then you go to upkeep. You are going to score each location. And again, you are going to look at this. Ties, result in nothing. Some tiles will give you 0 points if you have the most birds there, and so on. So you're going to score all of the locations, and then you will determine the new turn order. The person who has the most points will become player number 1 in the next round. The person with the second most will become the second player, and so on. It can be beneficial to come in last place because then you are the last person in that round to do something, which could, of course, be removing someone's birds, because again, there's a lot of take that in this game with the special creatures that you can gain control of. And then you will trigger locations that activate during upkeep. So for example, this one, during upkeep, the controlling player becomes the red fox controller. So now in the next round, the person who had the most birds on this tile will control the fox for the next round. And each character has a card which you will keep in front of you if you gained control of that animal, and that will tell you what that animal's ability is, and it will show everyone that you have control of that animal. So you will keep the card in front of you if you have control of a certain animal to show that it is now being controlled. And again, there's a bunch of different kinds of creatures. So the scarecrow is pretty cool. If you gain control of the scarecrow, you're going to move, as soon as you gain control of it, at the end of a round, move it to an intersection near some tiles. And then on your turn, if you want to use the scarecrow's ability, you will scare away one bird from 2 separate tiles that you are adjacent to. So those birds will go to the fountain or the plaza. So that, I think, is a very beneficial ability. The scarecrow cannot move though. Once you place it, it stays there. It can only be moved if someone else gains control of it and they decide to move it to a new intersection. So again, there are a bunch of different animals, like there's a dog, which we also played our game with. There's an owl, there's a yeti, which we did not play with, but a bunch of different kinds of characters, which, will give this game quite a bit of replayability, which is pretty cool. Oh, there's even a cuckoo bird. So yeah, lots of different characters you can use. So again, you will do one bonus action per turn if you choose to. So again, during the upkeep phase, you're going to activate upkeep tiles and assign characters if you need to, creatures. And then what do? Yeah, so then you advance the round marker and start the next round. And again, what you're going to do is add 2 birds of each color into this bag, and then each player is going to take turns drawing in turn order, drawing out 2 birds, and then adding 2 birds of their own color so that you end up with 4 birds, and then you begin again. So this game has so much take that in it because of the different creatures. Like, you can literally place down a bird one turn, and then the very next turn the player after you has, they will remove that bird. Like, you are just going to be messing up people's birds like crazy in this game and sending them to the fountain. Now the fountain is interesting. So the way the fountain populates is you populate the bottom rows first. But for example, if these 2 spots are populated, now you can go up to the next level because those 2 spots are populated, and you can then populate this spot. So you don't necessarily have to populate all of the bottom spaces before you start populating higher spaces. You may want to even get rid of one of your own birds, because again, birds in the fountain will score points at the end of the game. So the lower level will score lower points, but if you manage to remove a bird at the very end and put a bird here of your own, for example, you will score 8 points. So there are times where you want to remove your own bird. And then once the fountain has been filled up, any birds that get removed go to the plaza, and in the plaza, they're just worth 1 point each at the end of the game. At the end of the game, you're going to score for a variety of different things. So let's go to scoring. Where is scoring? Let's see. So you're going to score for, again, at the end of each round, you score each location allocating points, like we've already discussed that. At the end of the game, I feel like there's not a very clear section in this rule book for what you do. Oh, here we go. End of game scoring. So again, you score all the birds in the fountain and the plaza. Each person had hidden objectives, so you will score your hidden objective if you met the objective. Mine was to have control of 2 tiles that have nests on them at the end of the game. So I was in control of 2 tiles with nests, so I scored my hidden objective. 10 points are awarded for the single largest flock on a single location. So that means the tallest stack of birds. Whoever has the tallest stack will gain 10 points. Each person who has control of a creature at the end of the game will gain 3 points for each creature they have. You are awarded X points for each bird in the fountain and plaza, and so on. And yeah, I think that's it. And then whoever has the most points will win. So yeah, so it's a really easy game to learn with a lot of, I think, variability because of the different tiles that this game comes with and the different kinds of creatures you can play with. But again, it is a super chaotic game. Like, you are just going to be messing people's birds up. They're going to be messing up your birds. People are just going to be undoing what you just did and so on, and you're going to be doing the same to them. Super chaotic game. So if that sounds like something that you do not enjoy, then definitely do not check out this game. But if you don't mind a bit of chaos and take that, then you have to be okay with take that to enjoy this game, because if you are not okay with take that, you will be pretty upset while playing this, in which case I would definitely not recommend it. So I thought it was a fun game. I'm really glad I got the chance to play it, that my friend had backed it, because I did not back it and I don't have a review copy of it. I thought it was fun, but very chaotic. If my friend ever wants to play, I think I would be down to play, but it's not a game I would want to play very often, just because, it can be really frustrating in take that games, although I did come in 3rd place in a 5-player game, so I was pretty happy about that. Really cool components. Again, I don't know what the differences are between the deluxe edition and the regular edition. If someone has the regular edition, maybe they can leave a comment below and tell us all what the differences are. So yeah, so that was Perch. So let's move on. Another game I played recently, which I do not own, is The Gang, which is a 2024 game for 3 to 6 players, designed by John Cooper and Corey Heath, and the art is done by Fiore GmbH, and it's published by Cosmos. Now, this is a cooperative game in which you are trying to predict what other poker hands people have. So since I don't own it, and I actually didn't even take any pictures of it, I can't talk too much about it, but I just wanted to mention it because we played multiple games of this, and and I usually don't like cooperative games, but I actually really enjoyed this one. It's just a small kind of filler cooperative game, so it's not like a big cooperative game. So I think that's why I enjoyed it, but it was actually fun. So you're trying, so there's I believe 4 rounds, and you are dealt 2 cards at the beginning of the game, and those are just cards from a regular deck of playing cards. And you know, you're going to have these tokens which are equal to the number of players that have stars on them. And so you are trying to decide based on your cards you have, how good of a poker hand you have. It's, you know, and you're trying to commit a heist. So you are trying to collect tokens to indicate the strength of your poker hand without actually telling other players which cards you have. And you need to get the strength in order, in correct order, at the end of the round in order to win that heist. And when you have 3 rounds that you've won, you will win the game. If you lose 3 rounds, you will lose the game. So whichever happens first, you will either win or lose. So after each being dealt 2 tokens, 2 cards each player is going to select a token based on just the 2 cards they have. And then you're going to flop over 3 cards. So now things can change. So now you're looking at the 2 cards in your hand and the 3 cards that are below you on the table for everyone to see. Now you're going to grab a token to indicate the strength of your poker hand. So things are consistently going to be changing throughout the game depending on which cards are being flopped over from round to round. So in each round, you're going to select a token to indicate what you think the strength of your hand is. And if, say, I select a token with 1 star on it to indicate that I have a really bad poker hand, someone else might be able to take that 1 token from me if they think they have a worse hand. Now I'll have to take another token. You can take another token from another player, but you can never assign someone a token. So you will proceed to the next round once everyone has a token and they're done, and then you will flop over 1 more card and then again take a new set of tokens for that round. So the tokens are in different colors. So you're starting with a white token when you have just the 2 cards, then you'll be selecting a yellow token after 3 cards have been flopped over. Then when another card is flopped over, you'll be selecting an orange token. And then finally, when the last card is flipped over, you'll be selecting a red token. Then you're going to score based on the red token, and you have to have the order correct at that point in time in order to either win that heist or lose that heist in that round. So starting with the 1 red token, that person is going to lay down their cards and show everyone what their poker hand is. Then the person with the 2 red token will lay down their cards. If at any point the person who has a higher token has a worse hand than the person before them, then you lose immediately and you have lost that heist for that round. So, if you progress in order and each person has a subsequently better hand than the person before them, then great, you win the heist and you can flip over 1 heist card. So again, once 3 heist cards are flipped over, you win the game, but if 3 red alert cards are flipped over like siren cards, then you lose the game. And that is essentially the game. So at first I did badly because I didn't understand how poker works and I didn't understand how good a pair actually is. So I kept on causing us to lose heists because I didn't realize that pairs are actually good in poker because I don't play poker. The last time I played poker was like in 2008 or something, and I honestly could not remember much about it. And this is Texas Hold'em poker, by the way. So yeah, so I didn't understand how poker works. So you do have to have a good understanding of poker and the chances of getting like a flush, a straight, or whatever. That will definitely help you in this game. But yeah, it was a fun game. It's definitely a fun filler game, and I typically don't like cooperative games, but this was a fun one and I would recommend it. So yeah, so that was the gang. So let's move on. So I am currently not backing anything, but I had a number of new arrivals show up. And these are games that I received as review copies. So I don't know if I'm going to open all of them, but I'll show you what I received. So 25th Century Games sent me a couple of games. They sent me this game called Run, Run, Run. I don't really know much about it. It seems like a battling kind of game where you have to kind of defeat like a monster, which is really not my cup of tea. These are not games I requested. They just ended up, arriving. So I don't know, you know, how I'll feel about this game. I guess I'll play it because it was sent to me, but typically I don't like games where you have to kind of defeat monsters. But this is designed by Bruno Cathala and someone named Anthony Perrone, and I do like Bruno Cathala games, so maybe I'll enjoy it. I don't know. So I'm not going to unbox this because I have a lot of stuff to show you, but hopefully someday once I play it, I can show you. But I'll just show you the back of the box. It has like different like character cards and stuff like that, and honestly I'm not a huge fan of the artwork in this game, so we'll see. And then I got sent a bunch of small box games, and they just look like your typical like little small box games that you can play as filler games. So there's this one called Mojo. I don't know if it's Moho or Mojo. It looks like some kind of a card with numbers on it. Yeah, just like one, you know, just a card with numbers on it, and you're probably trying to get the lowest or highest or something. I don't know. There's one called Circus Flocati. So yeah, what does this one say? Flip cards for a breathtaking gala show. Score big points by collecting challenging circus cards, or play it safe by making simple sets of 3 cards. How far will you go to get the one you want? So yeah, another small card game. And here's another one called Jalapeno. No. So yeah, so this one obviously has jalapenos on it. So 3 small box games, which generally speaking, I'm not a huge fan of these like really small games, which are just kind of filler games. So we'll see how it goes. Chances are I'll play them once each, and then unless I'm like super in love with it for some reason, I'll probably donate it to FlagCon's game library. So those arrived. From 25th Century Games. And then I got a set of games, which I have no idea how I got these. So basically, I'll just give you a little bit of a backstory. So I had backed this campaign at the $1 level, and I thought to myself, maybe one day I'll reach out to the publisher and see if they want to credit my account. Never did. And when I found out that I was being sent these games, because I got a shipping notification, I like checked my inbox to see if I'd ever emailed the publisher. Like I was checking my sent folder, I couldn't find something. So I'm wondering, like, did they just see me in their pledge manager and recognize my name and decided to fulfill my you know, pledge manager of $1 and just send me the whole bundle? Or maybe I had at one point filled out a content creator form on a website somewhere, and that's why I have no record of it, and that's why I was sent these games. I have really no idea. Like, I don't know how I ended up getting these games, but I did. So I ended up receiving the board game Chassin and the expansion. I guess it's an expansion. I don't know if it's an expansion or a standalone, but these boxes are huge. So this is Chassin, and it's called the Political Strategy Board Game, created by Zane Memon. So yeah, so this arrived, and again, because I'm a bit pressed for time, I'm not going to unbox it now. Maybe I'll unbox it in the next video and show you guys then, next week's video. And then I received Chassin Azadi. So again, I don't know if it's an expansion or a standalone game. But yeah, really cool boxes. Look at the side with all of the cool writing, and it's really cool to see a game with like Arabic script, because I can read that, of course. Yeah, so let's see. Oh, it says it's a semi-cooperative board game about freedom struggles, giving you chance to relive and rewrite histories. I mean, it sounds pretty cool, and it's semi-cooperative, and I do kind of like semi-cooperative games. So that's Chassin Azadi. What does this one say? Does this one say anything on it? I don't know if, again, I feel like they're kind of standalone games because the boxes are so freaking big, but who really knows? So I'm gonna have to look that up. So yes, and then I got some expansions. I got the Fall of the Republic. I got Indus Revolution 3000 BCE, pretty cool, and French Revolution 1789. So again, I think I'll unbox these games for you guys in the next video and see if anyone I know would actually be interested in playing these games. So yeah, so those arrived very unexpectedly, and again, I don't know how I received them. I don't understand how I ended up getting them, but I did. So, you know, I'll be grateful for the games I received and hopefully try to get a chance to play them if I can find someone who's interested in those kinds of games. Actually, let's just see what the weight of these games are because I honestly have no idea. I do not know. So let's see. Shasson. Where is search? Shasson. Okay, so Shasson is a 2021 game. It's rated 7.4. And for weight, 2.85. So not terrible, actually. That's not really bad. And it says mechanisms, alliances, area majority, / influence, set collection, simulation, take that, trading, variable player powers. So yeah, that actually sounds pretty like up my alley. So that might be something I'm interested in playing. And Shasson Azadi is a 2025 game, does not have a rating yet. Oh, it's pretty heavy. It's rated 3.5 in terms of weight and the mechanics. So yeah, so I'm guessing it's not an expansion. I think it's a standalone game. So yeah, it says alliances, area majority / influence, events, map addition, market, scenario, mission, campaign game, semi-cooperative game. So I do think that these are two separate games. I don't think that this is an expansion. Let's see. Yeah, because it doesn't list anywhere that it's an expansion. So definitely probably a standalone game. So those are some new arrivals and hopefully I'll get them played someday soon and talk about them. So let's move on. So let's talk about my culling journey. So my friends did come over and we started cataloging my games into a spreadsheet, and honestly, it felt so good. Like it just, you know, was a good feeling to get that started. And we started working on this room. We didn't even finish this room and we got up to like 270 games and we didn't even finish. Like we didn't even finish one whole bookcase in that closet. There's still parts of that bookcase to go through. There's still another whole bookcase. There's still games on the floor on that side of the room, and then the whole calyx, which we haven't even cataloged. And that's just this room. And then we need to go downstairs to my game library / office and catalog those, but it just felt really good to get started, and the spreadsheet I think will be very helpful in helping me to decide whether or not I want to keep a game or cull a game. So we did start. We are like 270 games in, and yeah, and you know, my friends really did enjoy it. Like they really had fun like picking up each box. And I know I didn't have to reinvent the wheel. I know I could have just downloaded all of my games from Board Game Geek and just had all the names of the games there, but my friends like really just enjoyed picking up each game and like just, you know, putting information into a spreadsheet. Like, you know, that's just something that's enjoyable for them, so who am I to take that away from them? And I enjoyed it too, actually. It's just nice. So yeah, it's such a fun little project which will take a while, but yeah, we're making progress, and hopefully I will be culling a lot of games once we get through cataloging all of them. So let's talk about cats. So I saw that in the Midwest the temperatures are really terrible. Like, you know, at first we were talking -20s Fahrenheit, and then I saw someone, because I'm part of this feral cat group on Facebook, you know, which is a group filled with people who take care of stray cats from all around the world, and someone posted that in Wisconsin it was supposed to get to -50 degrees Celsius. Like, I cannot even imagine. And it just makes me so sad thinking about all of the animals who don't have anyone to take care of them. So again, please, just a call to action. Like, if you see an animal in need, you are someone and you can do something. So please, if you see an animal in need who needs feeding and shelter, provide that shelter. Fill it with straw, never blankets and never towels or anything like that, because those freeze and animals can freeze to them, and they retain moisture, so really not good. So if you build a shelter or buy a ready-made shelter for an animal, fill it with straw, because they do not retain moisture, and straw will allow the cat to kind of create a little burrow and snuggle up and try to stay warm. So again, please, if you see animals that are stray, take them in or help them or start feeding them and create a shelter for them. Like, you are someone and you can do something, and you know, you can sacrifice the cost. You can sacrifice one board game or two in order to buy a shelter and, you know, feed a cat or a dog. Like, you can do that. Like, you know, it's a good thing and you will feel really good when you do it. So please help the animals in your community. especially during really, you know, terrible weather conditions, whether it's really, really cold and snowy or really, really hot, and animals need water to drink and shade to rest in. So please just consider helping the animals in your area. You know, I think it's something that everyone should be doing, and you will feel really good if you do it. So let's move on. I just want to talk very briefly about FlagCon. So for FlagCon 2025, it is actually going to be held Halloween weekend. And I have to say that it's, you know, not the most convenient of times because Essen is the weekend before. So let me see if I can pull up a calendar here. Why does it look weird? So here we go. So like looking at October of 20, oh no, it's 2024. I don't want 2024. I want 2025. Okay, October 2025. So Essen is from October 23rd to October 26th. And then FlagCon is from October 1st to November 2nd, like literally back-to-back conventions. And this year for FlagCon, the main organizer whose idea all of this was, he is looking for co-directors and people to take on much bigger roles in organizing. And he sent out an email to everyone asking for which co-director kinds of roles people want. Like one of them was even industry outreach, which of course I would be good at because I have industry contacts, but I just don't have the time. So I've decided that I will not be applying for a co-director position, and I will just be attending as a, you know, as someone who maybe is leading an event next year, or just attending as a gamer. Like I just don't have the time to commit to being a co-director. Like the email indicated how much he wants to meet with people, and you know the intensity is going to increase as we get closer to October. And I'm working on my own board game, like really making progress with that. I'm co-designing a game with someone. Work keeps me busy. You know, there's just so much more going on in my life. I just don't have the time anymore to commit to this. So I'm not going to be a co-director for FlagCon, I've decided. And I will just be attending as someone who's just attending to have fun, but I will still donate games to the game library, and I will still, you know, encourage people to come because it's a convention I love, and you know it's in a place I love, Ithaca, so of course I will encourage people to still come. So yeah, so that is just my quick little update on FlagCon. So let's move on. So for Fiction Book Club, we were supposed to read the next 2 chapters, which again, you know, she and Hassan, Fatima and Hassan are still busy like traveling and trying to get to wherever they are going. But I did highlight a few interesting quotes, which I thought were really good. At one point, the Jim Vikram says to Fatima, I sometimes forget that dreams are where you Banu Adam sort out your waking lives. So Banu Adam refers to the people of Adam. So that means humans. It's basically referring to humans. So he's basically saying, I sometimes forget that dreams are where you humans sort out your waking lives. And I thought that was so interesting. Like I've never really thought about it like that way, but it kind of is true. I mean, we already read that one book about dreams, and I talked at length about the kinds of dreams I have and reoccurring dreams and stuff like that. So maybe, you know, it is a way for us to sort out our waking lives. I just wish we could really, really have more of an understanding of what dreams really are, what they mean. I just find dreams so fascinating. And unfortunately, it's not like a hard science, so it's not like something that you can actually really learn more about. So that was one quote that really stood out to me. Another quote was when Hassan is talking about some invention, and he's talking about how you know, thank God that men invented cheese and curing olives, like the process to cure olives. And Fatima replies, they were probably women. If they were men, we would remember their names. And I thought that was such an interesting quote, like, because like, of course, if they were men, their names would have been written down in history books and we would be praising them for the rest of our lives, you know, and generation after generation. Like, how many women have invented things and just did not get credit? Like, I love that Fatima replied with that to him. Like, I thought that that was a really good quote that deserved highlighting, so I actually highlighted that. And then there's one more that I want to highlight. So Vikram starts telling a story about birds because, you know, she wants to know how the Conference of the Birds ends. And, you know, it's a real poem that she doesn't have access to and doesn't know how it ends. So she and Hassan are always making up stories about these birds. And now she knows that Vikram actually knows how it ends, and she wants to know how it ends. And he says, once a story leaves the hands of its author, it belongs to the reader, and the reader may see any number of things, conflicting things, contradictory things. The author goes silent. And I thought that that was so interesting, because how often do people interpret, writings in their own way? And it reminds me of a really funny story from high school where we were reading poetry in one of my English classes by someone. And then we had to write some kind of a paper. And it turned out that this poet was gay. And so this one student, he interpreted every single poem that this author wrote to be about homosexuality. Like, he just turned every single poem into being about being a homosexual, being gay. And I'm just like, that is so funny. Like, once he learned that the author was gay, every single poem was apparently about that. It couldn't be possibly about anything else. Every single poem he thought was about the author being gay. So I thought that that was really funny. And it's just so true that people will assign their own meanings to things that authors write. And, and I think it allows authors to get away with ambiguity as well in books, right? Because they know that people are going to assign their own meanings to things. And sometimes people will assign more meaning to things than the author even intended. And people might think that authors are even more, genius than they truly are, because maybe they didn't even think of something, and the readers are thinking, oh wow, this means that, and now they're thinking the author is a super genius. Like, I thought that was just super funny and relatable. So yeah, so those quotes stood out to me. I am interested in learning more about Vikram and him being a jinn. Oh, there was one thing in this book which I didn't highlight, but it talked about the first languages that the beings that God created, and that the languages they used to speak, and how Hassan's ability is like kind of going back to that, understanding of these things which most humans don't have understandings of. And I thought that that was so interesting, because, as Muslims, we do believe that God first created the angels and jinns, and humans didn't come until much later. And yeah, and so, the fact that they may have their own, way to communicate, or their own special powers and stuff like that, just really fascinates me. And as a Muslim, I've always been really interested in stuff like that, like more so than other things. Like, I've always really wanted to understand angels and jinns and the universe and all of that stuff. So really enjoying the read so far, and that's really all I have to say about it this week. So let me know what you thought of the 2 chapters we just read and what stood out to you. And for next week, let's read the next 2 chapters. So that would be chapters 10 and 11. But yeah, let me know how you're enjoying this book so far. And are we reading at too slow of a pace? Would you like to read more than 2 chapters a week? Let me know. But so far, I'm really enjoying this read. So thank you for reading this with me. And let's read the next 2 chapters, unless you would like to read more than that, and then we can up it to maybe 3 chapters a week. Let me know what your thoughts are below, and let's move on. So for this week, we were supposed to read chapter 1 of this book called Palestine, a 4,000-year history. But before I start talking about it, I do need to apologize, because I kept on referring to the author as a she in my last video, and Noor is a he, not a she. In my defense, Noor I have seen used as a female name as well. I know that there is a feminine version of the name Noor, which is Noura, but I've also seen Noor just be used as a name for females as well. So just in my mind, I just automatically pictured Noor being a woman. But no, Noor is a man. So I will refer to the author as he going forward and get their gender correct. So I apologize for that. So this week we were supposed to read chapter 1. And chapter 1 was the Philistines and Philistia as a distinct geopolitical entity, late Bronze Age to 500 BC. So I don't want to give you guys like a whole history lesson here, but I did highlight quite a bit, which basically talks about the origins of Palestine, and how different how it was referred to in different time periods during this time period, like by the Assyrians, and in the Bible, how it was referred to in the Old Testament. He talks about the name Canaan, or I guess Canaan. I don't know exactly how it's pronounced, the Canaanites. And He talks about how they were actually identical to the Phoenicians, and he at one point says the Old Testament terms Canaanites and Israelites in Palestine do not necessarily refer to or describe two distinct ethnicities. So I think it's really important, because Israelis today, modern day Zionists, use the Old Testament as a way to justify their settler colonialism and their occupation. So I think that this chapter is really important, which breaks down what is true and what is not true from the Old Testament and how a lot of it is just made up. So it was really interesting to read all of that in this chapter. So I'll just read one quote. It says that there's this scholar of the Old Testament, and he says, the Old Testament narrative of the Israelites and the Canaanites must be read as ideological constructs of the other, as the non-Jews, rather than as reference to an actual historical ethnic group. The Canaanites of Palestine did not know that they were themselves Canaanites. Only when they had, so to speak, left of their original home did they acknowledge that they had been Canaanites. And then here down further below, it says, however, in the modern era, beginning with the late 19th century, European Zionist leaders appropriated the Old Testament narratives as historical accounts and used them instrumentally to justify their settler project and their conflict with the indigenous people of Palestine. And we do see that there were indigenous people of Palestine, and at some points in history they were known as the Palastia, at other points as the Philistines, which is how they're referred to in like the Old Testament. So the Philistines are the Palestinians, like the modern day Palestinians are like, descended from these ancient groups that are referenced in this chapter. So he talks about the name and how it's, shown up in many, many different historical documents and tablets which have been unearthed. Like, there's different kinds of tablets, there's references to Egypt and, the Greeks and Romans, and, it talks about what, city-state it was with like lots of trading and how it flourished. So there's so much you can learn about, ancient Palestine in this chapter and what kind of a place it actually was. Like this, and then, how Jerusalem became this really amazing medieval city, and it's a really great example of an Islamic medieval city. It talks about, how they even had coinage, and you can see coins from, ancient Palestine and stuff like that. But yeah, basically this whole chapter, talks about the name and how it appeared in ancient documents and tablets, like in carvings, and how modern day Zionists have, twisted things in order to justify their settler colonialism, but how there actually was a people in this land. So the claim, again, which we learned from the last two books we read, that Palestine was a land without people, again, 100% untrue. So please read this book and read this chapter if you haven't, because I think it's so important to learn the ancient history of this land, which honestly I did not know much about. So I found this chapter to be really fascinating. So again, I don't want to just reread the entire chapter, but that's just kind of a quick synopsis of what this chapter was about, and I think it's really fascinating, and it's really not difficult reading. So if you want to learn really interesting history about that part of the world, highly recommend you pick up this book, because I thought the chapter was really interesting. So for next week, let's read the next two chapters, because these chapters are kind of short. So let's read chapter 2, which is the conception of Palestine in classical antiquity and during the Hellenistic empires, which is 500 to 135 BC. And chapter 3, from Philistia to Provincia, Syria, Palestina, 135 AD to 390 AD, the administrative province of Roman Palestine. So again, these two chapters 2 and 3, are pretty short, so I think we can read both of them. So yeah, it's just really, really fascinating learning about this ancient history about Palestine. Let me know what really stood out to you, whether you're enjoying this book, what you think about it so far. Just please leave your comments below, because I would love to know what you think so far. And again, I do think it's pretty easy reading compared to, again, the 100 Years' War in Palestine, and just really fascinating reading. So I encourage people to pick it up and learn about a part of the world which they don't know much about. Open your minds and just become educated and, learn the truth, because as we will see, which I'll talk about in a minute, with the TikTok ban, you know, the truth is going to be more and more suppressed in this country. So yeah, so I want to talk about that next. So let's move on. So yesterday, which was Saturday, I was scrolling on TikTok late at night, not knowing, you know, that TikTok would actually end last night, because I thought that today, Sunday, would be the last day. And somehow I ended up on kangaroo TikTok. So I ended up seeing these videos about kangaroos, and I kind of hate the fact that the last videos I saw on TikTok were about kangaroos, but okay. I'm just really glad that my parents did not migrate to Australia, because I have learned how scary adult male red kangaroos are. Like, they look terrifying, and you know, include kangaroos with all the crazy kinds of snakes and spiders that Australia has. Like, there's no way in hell I would ever want to live there. Like, you could not pay me like $1 million to move to Australia. Like, just would not happen. So anyway, so TikTok officially is banned, and of course Trump is saying that he might give it a 90-day reprieve, whatever. I think a lot of people are not aware of how connected the TikTok ban is to what's going on in Palestine. Like, if you look at the people who were pushing for this ban, it was Israel who kept on telling United States politicians, like, oh, you need to ban TikTok. And there were so many politicians making statements about how, you know, TikTok is pro-Palestinian. It's encouraging people to, you know, go against Israel. Like, people do not realize how these two are connected. And so again, go out and do your research and learn more about how the government really wants to control narratives and control all the propaganda. And when they can't control something, like they couldn't control TikTok, they couldn't control all the Palestinians who are posting videos about the genocide, they couldn't control all of the people in America who are posting their support for Palestine. So what do? They decide to ban it. So that's what is one of the main, if not the main reason for banning TikTok, is because of Palestine and the genocide that was happening in Palestine. There are so many like politicians who have talked about that. You know, so many people in the Israeli lobby who have talked about how TikTok needed to be banned because of how pro-Palestine it was, and how, you know, Palestine was mentioned way more than Israel and support for Palestine. So all connected, all very connected. So yeah, I just want to say, you know, I just was kind of bittersweet. You know, realizing that I no longer have access to TikTok. You know, I believe I was the first, if not one of the very first few short form board game content creators on TikTok, which is why my channel got the attention it did. Like, I never got the amount of subscribers that other board game content creators have on TikTok. Like, there are people with hundreds of thousands of subscribers on TikTok. I was like always at around 2,000 subscribers, followers on TikTok. So I never blew up like they did. You know, I never really followed the trends. I never really, I'm not a funny person. I can't make funny videos. Like, that's not what I do. So I never blew up on TikTok, but because I was the first person who started creating TikTok board game content, that's how publishers noticed me back in 2020, in April of 2020. And that's how my name just kind of blew up overnight back then. And I'll never forget it. Like, it was just very surreal how I just started, you know, just creating these videos on TikTok because I saw no board game content on TikTok at the time. I just blew up overnight, and I had publishers wanting to send me games overnight. Like, it just like literally happened overnight, and it was just very surreal. And now, at the time that it got banned, there must be thousands of board game content creators on TikTok. I mean, new creators were coming out all the time. Like, you just could not keep up with the amount of board game content that there would be on TikTok, right? But I'm not so much sad about losing access to the board game content. I'm more sad about losing access to the stories that of people that we won't have access to anymore, like the Palestinians, for example, who are going through a genocide. So yes, I am one of those people who downloaded Red Note and have transferred over there. However, I just, you know, it's not the same as TikTok, and I'm just still trying to learn how Red Note works. And, you know, I don't even know if I'll be able to find all the people I want to find. Like, I did not spend time trying to find those people before TikTok got banned. I spent time downloading every video that had my old my cat Dobby, who passed away. So I made sure to download all the videos on TikTok that had my cats in them. Not board game ones, because those are already on YouTube and elsewhere. So I spent time just downloading cat videos of my own from TikTok and other videos that I might not have uploaded elsewhere. But yeah, it's gone now. And I do feel like this country is suppressing free speech, and, and it's doing so in order to control the narratives that, they want to control about Israel, about Palestine, about anything else. And, we have all this talk about these rich, people who want to maybe buy TikTok and save it, and then we'll be fed the narratives that they want us to, hear. Just like, the way Twitter has become a cesspool of, like, a place for Elon Musk to just, spout his views, and, he can just willy-nilly do whatever the hell he wants because he now owns Twitter. Like, it's just, this country is just becoming more and more fascist, and I hope that people are becoming aware of, what the signs of fascism are. And let's talk about the ceasefire. So, of course, there was the ceasefire, which was approved, but then Netanyahu was like, oh no, Palestine did this, and we're not going to agree to it. And then I think the latest news is that he said that as soon as the ceasefire is over, he's going to resume with bombing Palestine. Like, what even is the point of a ceasefire if you are just going to continue with your genocidal intent? And I really hope that people see now, with all the talks about a ceasefire, that it was never, ever, ever about the hostages. It was always, always, always about creating greater Israel, about exterminating all of the Palestinian people and taking control of as much of Palestine as possible. Like, the proof is there. They literally do not give a shit about their hostages, which Palestine has. And there are thousands and thousands of hostages in Israel. Like, people refer to them as prisoners, but they are hostages. They are people who have been imprisoned without any charge whatsoever. It includes thousands of children. It includes women. And these people are being continuously raped in these Israeli prisons. There have been multiple exposés about this. The New York Times has written about the rapes that occur in these Israeli prisons, these torture chambers. So it should really tell you who is the bad guy here. Like, thousands and thousands of hostages compared to a couple hundred. Like, who is the bad guy here? So there is this trade deal being proposed, and you should really think about how it is that, 1,000 hostages are being returned to Palestine. Like, and there's thousands of more that are not going to be returned. So the numbers alone should make you question what is reality and what's really going on. And the fact that Israel just does not give a shit about the hostages. Just very recently, it was bombing one of the places that reportedly had hostages being held there. Like, they literally just do not give a shit about the hostages. It's always been about killing as many Palestinians as possible. And we've seen that from reading the books which we read for my book clubs, which were the 100 Years War on Palestine and the 10 Myths about Israel. So, I don't understand how there are people who are still today supporting Israel, who are still today standing with Israel, which is a genocidal terrorist nation state. That's what Israel is. It's a genocidal terrorist nation state. So you can go watch my old videos to learn all about the genocide. I've been talking about it week after week after week, and expressing my discontentment with the board game industry, which has remained silent. And as I said last week, they're gearing up to do another fundraiser for the Palestinian Children's Relief Fund without having ever actually condemned the genocide, without ever having condemned Zionism and Zionists. And they fully support their Zionist publishers and designers in this industry, like Helena and Josh Kappel, who own Burnt Island Games and Kids Table Board Gaming, like Isaac Shalev, like all these Zionists in this industry whose games they support and promote. And, they continue to do that while on the flip side pretending to care about Palestine. You cannot pretend that you care about Palestine if you support Zionism and Zionists. Those two are completely contradictory. You cannot support Palestinians while remaining silent about the evil that Zionism is, which is the root cause of all evil in that part of the world, which is the root cause of the genocide. So, these people are just going to pat themselves on the back when they start this fundraiser and pretend that they're doing such amazing work, even though they are promoting games by Zionists and contributing to Palestinian suffering. So this is just a way for them to make themselves feel better because they have no integrity, zero integrity. So yeah, so we'll see what happens with this so-called ceasefire, and yeah, and Trump is becoming president tomorrow, and yeah, the world just is just a shit show. It's just a shit show of a world. Yeah, so that's where we are right now, and that is just my rant for this week. So let's move on. So this week's question of the week is obviously inspired by Perch, and I have two questions. The first question is, do you like games with take that in them? How much take that can you take before you decide that it's not a game for you? I just really want to know your thoughts on take that games. And then the second game is, which other bird themed games do you like? I think the obvious answer that anyone is going to give is Wingspan, but there are other bird themed games as well. Like Birdwatcher. I really like Birdwatcher. So let me know the answers to those two questions below, and until next week, bye!